Welcome to. It ain't really specialtating, but it is kind of sewing and analyzing my final ever sport mode race for my main account. Again, this ain't really specialtating, so I ain't gonna go over the race itself and just have it running in the background type thing. I'm gonna pause it and explain some stuff and overall give details as to why essentially it is my final sport mode race on my main account. To begin with, why not start with positive? Gran Turismo 7's looking like it's confirmed. It's looking like if the best case scenario happens, it'll be out within a year and a half. That's quite good. I can wait a year and a half for the next true Gran Turismo game. That's fine, whatever. I've been waiting since Gran Turismo 6 Online ended in 2017. AKA over half the wait is completed now, so whatever. Next thing being the PlayStation 5, I think this is a straight up 100% confirmed, no rumor whatsoever for that, is going to have backwards compatibility with PlayStation 4 games. I would hope, I would assume, it would make sense for it to also be backwards compatible with digital games, because it's just something that's kind of needed, because digital games all in all are more popular than physical games nowadays. But even if it don't, I have GT Sport as a physical copy. That'll be the final physical game I buy. The reason I got GT Sport as a physical copy is because honestly GameStop had the better pre-order stuff. So y'all know, if y'all remember, that sort of bit me too, because the original PlayStation 4 had disk drive quit working. So yeah, it's something. But again, more specific to this race, why it's the last time I'm doing a sport mode race with my main account. Well, the penalty system is better than it was. There's no denying that. A year and a bit ago, the penalty system was downright intolerable. It could not be played. The other vehicles decided to race completely, fully, and totally. You had no control over it, and that's no exaggeration whatsoever. If y'all don't believe me, well, go back to previous videos, not just mine, but a lot of people. But the penalty system now, well, I'm showcasing it in this race. This is from the previous week's weekly races, the one that I'm into you're good at. In reality, well, I started this race in second, but that's because I said in reality, Group 4 cars around this track I ain't as good at. In general, pretty good at this track, but Group 4 is probably my weakest grouping, because the best Group 4 car I'm just not all that good at driving, meaning the 4C. That doesn't, again, specifically have to do with all of the weekly races I'm not doing anymore, but honestly, mainly it's what I already touched on. It's still the penalty system. And now there's the whole new thing with the penalty system automatic deletion, meaning whether you get a penalty it's deserved or not, you're gonna delete it in the same place every time, and you have no control over it. Because it's not even really you deleting it, it's the game itself. To start off with, this is where I'll get into more true analysis of the individual race. In general, I don't do much sport mode racing on my main account. Anyway, the only time I really ever show up on my main account is if it's something I am truly good at. And this was the bottom of the barrel, what I'm truly good at. My best track was probably the worst cars for this track for me. So, now I didn't get the pole, but I knew if I ended up finishing second in this race, I would probably only have like a deduction of like 50 driver rating or something, which is still downright broken in my opinion. No matter how high your driver rating is, for Jiminy Cricket's sakes, if you get a podium, it should at least not go down. In my opinion, third and second should guarantee your driver rating not to go down, a win to make it go up. That seems fair, unless you have literally perfect driver rating, which I don't. But that's not even the thing I'm complaining with. To begin with, for this particular race, it's just overall quality of life, meaning just how the races themselves go, not the penalties and all that other races, just how fun are the races in general. GT Sport is realistic more so than any other Gran Turismo game on paper, but in reality, they don't allow you to tune race cars. Like, literally, the point of a race car is that you can tune them to try to make them specifically good for a specific track and tune the transmission so it's as fast as possible per track. Meaning, if you're in two different cars, you just have to bend to the game's whims on how good the cars are. There's no trying to make them equal yourself. You just have to go with what the game says. For this race, because again, I said I'm not the best in the best Group 4 car for this track, I am in the Toyota GT86. The others in the 4C. The 4C just straight up handles better than the GT86. Not going to try to deny that. And the 4C stayed right with me in a draft. It didn't really gain any time because that's where the GT86 does have an advantage. It's faster on the straights, but it stayed right with me in a draft. Like, it wasn't going to pass on the straight, but it wasn't really losing any time anyway. AKA, it could probably pass in the turn, and well, it does. But from what I could tell, that car just barely nicked the inside wall. I mean, I wasn't giving it the most room in the world, but also I didn't have the most room in the world. Like, just look where I'm at here in relation to the other car. Like, there's room to the other car, but there's not that much room to the wall, so I do move over a bit because where I have a bit of room. But then right there, as y'all can see, the car sort of steers a little bit. Like, aka it doesn't really stay in its lane completely. It just loses a bit of speed there and then wiggles a bit. Meaning it just barely nicks the wall. I'm not necessarily saying that's fault with that driver because I wasn't giving him much room. I was giving him room but not much. I mean, in my opinion, that's how you're supposed to drive in these races. You ain't just supposed to let him straight up by, but you can also give him a bit of room to be fair. So I gave him the amount of room that I figured I needed to. But because that car was losing speed and nudged the wall at that point, it also just nudged me. And then because of that, I hit the other wall. So aka just barely an extremely small mistake by driver that was pretty much caused by me pressuring the other driver. Not in a dirty way, but sort of in a racecraft way, meaning strategy. I didn't want the driver to get around, but the driver, if it had enough skill, could have still gotten around, most likely. Pretty much ended up getting around anyway because it nudged me into the wall. So then I'm doing the best I can to get out of that driver's way because I don't have momentum. The other car is there too. So then ping physics actually hurt the other car. What I was attempting to do is let the lead car by. Like, as y'all could see, that car on the right there, so really in the left because it's in the rearview mirror, so it's reversed, is with more momentum, so it's ahead. I was going to let the car that had the most momentum by, and then the car that was behind me anyway would either stay behind me or wait and pass, whatever. But instead, it nudges me like way forward with a stupid amount of momentum, more momentum than that car ever had, because as y'all could see, to begin with, both the cars had roughly the same momentum, just the white car was slightly ahead. So okay, it makes no sense whatsoever that my car just randomly, boom, gains tons of momentum, way more momentum than that car had in the first place, and then now I'm rocketed into a giant lead, and I feel bad for that car that I somewhat had to block to let the other car that was ahead around, and then ultimately, by default, the other car didn't get around because the car on the outside hit my car. So now I feel bad because of that, but I'm also not going to let the position back because essentially that was the game's broken physics doing everything. If I could actually tune this car to make it handle better, maybe that situation wouldn't have happened. If the other car could have been tuned better to be more stable, then maybe the ping in the first place wouldn't have happened. But anyway, ultimately, no penalty was given for this, even though there was an obvious slowing of all three of us down. Who truly deserved a penalty there? In my opinion, all in all, nobody. But there's a situation coming up in which penalties happen that are straight up non-deserved. Actually, zoom or fast forwarded slightly too much there. So this is going into the first turn of the next track. I'll admit I mess up some, but as y'all can see, this car behind me already has a penalty of a lot. 5 seconds. I don't know what happened there, but I do know the other car that I was racing with in general was still sort of there. So how this car got a 5-second penalty to begin with is beyond me. But yeah, I admit I messed up into this corner somewhat. Again, the 4C does handle better, but also I didn't do that turn perfectly either. It's okay, the 4C was handling better anyway, plus I didn't get the most momentum off that turn. Yet more contact was unavoidable. I mean, look, I'm on the outside here, where your racing line just goes after its turn. You exit the turn on the outside. The other car did the same thing. That was pretty much an unavoidable wreck. Wait for folks, I also get a penalty for getting ran into. Granted, again, I said I somewhat messed up that turn. I'm not going to deny that. Fine, I messed up that turn. But how in the blue blazes does that give me a penalty? I did not swerve in front of that driver. That driver was just automatically behind me because that's the line you take through that turn. So therefore, this gives two drivers undeserved penalties. That driver directly behind me, somehow in a little bit of length of time that I saw it on video, which was all in all half a lap, gained a 5-second penalty, but then yet the car that was behind it wasn't wrecked or anything. At the max, that means it would have just been little taps along the way between those two cars, but then yet there was little taps involved with my car either that somehow stunted my car up like 20 miles an hour, more than it ever should have been in the first place speed, but then yet there's no penalty there. How could there be no penalty for something that obviously changed around how the course of the race was going, but then yet a penalty for something that barely had anything to do with whatsoever, but then yet in this case, pretty much the exact same situation happened as the first case, aka I'm going somewhat slower and then get shunted forward with gaining momentum. I get a penalty this time. Why in the first place did I not get a penalty? Why in the second place did they get a penalty for something that was less minor than the first place? But then yet in the third place, which was the same as the first place, which was no penalty, got a penalty. It makes no sense whatsoever. And again, this is my best track, and it's still happening. I'm not physically good enough to avoid the penalty system, so I really just don't feel like racing anymore. And that's sort of messed up too, because as you all know, I'm not terrible at this track. So I would hate to do with a track that I'm not good at, like Nürburgring or something. That would be utter green hell, literally and figuratively. But the green would not be the sportsman separating. That's very much an orange or red or however you want to word it. So anyway, this is just a continuation of the race itself. I just put it into the two clips there because that's when I saved it the first time. I'll admit, something good that GT Sport has that I quite salute is GT Sport. You can actually pause during an online race and the AI take control. I've never really seen any other game do that in an online race, so that is nice, something that has. So that way I can save a clip when it happens. And two, when you pause, you automatically go ghost. So in theory, you can use that to your advantage too, because if somebody's looking like they're going to blatantly dive bomb you, you can just press the start button and then they go through you. Everyone in this race has been clean so far. I'm trying to get out of people's way. If I wreck or if I just can't, then chaos ensues. Like, the first time I tried to go wide, chaos ensued. The second time, I was already wide, chaos ensued. So, ultimately, two of these drivers already have big penalties, and the other driver involved, well, had the first stunt happen and lost tons of momentum. So, now one car is slowed down, and the other two now have to delete penalties at some point or another. Meaning, in this penalty zone, that's an automatic deletion of penalties right in the middle of the track. The cars do go ghost during this, but still, this is the least realistic way that penalties could possibly be served. Every track that I know of has pits. You do like real life, if there's a penalty, you serve it in the pits. You coast down pit lane for 5 seconds of losing speed if you have a 5-second penalty. There's no cars in pit lane. The only time there would be cars in pit lane is if it's a full race with tire wear and fuel consumption. And at that point, if there are cars in pit lane, no matter what, they're auto drive. So it wouldn't matter if you're just there leading penalty or not. Granted, that would mean you'd have to auto drive a car going faster than a quote-unquote pit lane speed. to keep it fair. Because if you only have a 5-second penalty, you only have to slow down for 5 seconds or whatever. But still, that seems like much more realistic implementation than slowing down in the middle of the track. I pretty much think there's no denying it's a lot better than being able to slow down in pit lane, whether at some point you are going faster than the pit road speed or not, than slowing down on a racetrack in which there's no speed limit. Everybody's trying to race at their absolute max. Essentially, another way to put this is on a road. But in real life, let's say a highway, the speed limit is 70 miles an hour. Flow of traffic goes about 80, let's say that. Somebody gets pulled over for going 95. They drop to 0 miles an hour for the amount of time given a ticket, and then they're on their way. In theory, at that point, they should be going about the flow of traffic at 80 again if they learned a lesson. So therefore, they go off to the side of the road, aka like a pit, and traffic is not hurt by that. In this game, the equivalent way of giving a penalty for that is essentially if the cops came up to someone going 95, they turned on their siren, they rolled down their window, made the other person roll down their window too, and hand them a ticket while both of the cars are simultaneously sitting there next to each other going 35. Like, you don't slow down to complete stop, but you're still in the middle of the road. Now, which would be better, the sitting on the side of the road at a full stop, or sitting there at half the pace, or not even really fully sitting there, driving at a pace, still moving in the road? I feel like that's just common sense right there. Yes, in general, I don't mind the penalty system automatic deletion thing, because then there's less overall chaos, because you know where the penalties are going to be deleted. But I'm just saying that where they put the implementation of the automatic penalty system is stupid. This is a fast back straight. These cars get up to darn near 150 miles an hour depending on the car around here. I'm already accelerating and I'm going 60. There doesn't need to be a 100-mile-an-hour difference on a racetrack. So essentially, I'm done racing now with sport mode on my main account. The quality of racing doesn't allow tuning with race cars. It's never made sense to me. Especially when previous games have had perfectly fine tuning. There's great tuning even back in Gran Turismo 4. Tuning in Gran Turismo games has existed for many console generations. It might have even been around the PS1, don't quote me then, but it seems like there was some sort of tuning type aspect back then too. Didn't play those games much at all, and especially not when new, but it seems like it was there. Why in the blue blazes do they not implementing tuning to the real driving simulator in the most modern rendition, which is supposed to be as realistic as possible? And then a way they try to make it as realistic as possible that is different from other games is a penalty system, and that's still quite unrealistic. Just this, in general, will never happen in real life. Yes, going slow on a racetrack does happen in real life sometimes when there's a caution, aka a pace car would come out of something wrecked, or there is something deserving of a major penalty. I'll give an example of somewhat even in real life in this, and in racing. In real life, cars would slow down, maybe not to complete stop, but still be slightly moving if there's a wreck or something. In racing, pretty much the same thing. If there's a wreck, the cars will slow down, not to complete stop. But both situations involved means all of the cars on track are slowed down to the same speed. In this situation, it's just some cars that slow down in the middle of the track. That just does not make any sense whatsoever. At the very least, if they can't implement the pit stop thing, the pit lane thing, they should have lanes in which penalties are deleted. Like you see this whole big open area there that kind of gets cut off at some point. How about you have that be the lane in which penalties are deleted? Yes, it does get cut off at this point, so there would be merging into traffic, but while the cars are ghost, that shouldn't be as big of a deal. Yes, either way the cars are ghost, but the thing with the ghost and cars is they just go right back into existence. There's no countdown or anything. They go right back into existence as when they do. It's not the easiest thing to predict, but at least when a car is merging into traffic, that's more predictable because you can physically see the car merging, you can physically see it turning, but you might not be able to see a car go immediately from ghost immediately to not. Granted, this is probably one of the better tracks for places, runoff areas to delete penalties that are still not well and truly off the track. Like, obviously, the SARV has big runoff areas and bonds and stuff like that. But all of those are so much off the beaten path, in which it may cause more chaos merging onto the track. But still, I'm not a developer. I shouldn't be the one thinking of these situations. This is PD's job. I'm just a player. I mean, these probably aren't the best ideas. No, they're probably not. But I'm not a professional in this. I'm just saying this because it's directly affecting me in this situation. It's affected a lot of people in a lot of different situations. This is just a one situation in general that I'm sewing. Now, all things considered, in this, I still come out of it in fourth place. Kind of. That car's literally inside my car right now, but the GT86 is faster and straight, so it's still fourth place. But either way, I'll be on after this race, and this was also one of the ones on the live stream, so y'all can see the whole thing live if you want. But what isn't shown after that, because it still doesn't show directly points on GT Sport Resident, it's stupid. But online, I looked and it dropped my sportsmanship rating to an 82 from a 99. As always, I'm not going to be dirty unless someone else is being blatantly dirty first. Everyone was doing as good as they could, racing clean. But the penalty system made it to where there's really no way to do truly good. Because the ghosting system is shown to work here, but yet in the first situation, a car slammed my car, going the same speed as another car, but then yet somewhat carried my car to more momentum than both of the cars had even before the hit, by quite a bit. And that could have easily been a situation in which ghosting was implemented. And in the second situation, there was still no ghosting, but yet that one I even got a penalty for. Both of which those situations were kind of the same. Then there was another incident off screen that looked like no cars were really slowed down from, that still yet gave another car a penalty. Again, I don't have exact solutions to fix this stuff, but I'm also not exactly a professional. I'm not exactly the one who should be making solutions, am I? But it is a good thing to do in general, to listen to the community for general suggestions. Obviously, there's testing and all that needs done to get it down perfectly, or as close as it can get to perfectly, because different people have different opinions. I get that. Nothing will ever be truly really perfect, especially in the penalty system. I mean, look at NASCAR, for example. People complain about the way its penalties are done for quite a while. This season, they have something to where if a driver gets a tuning type penalty, they lose their win. People had good views of that, people had bad views of that. But ultimately, the main thing that came of that is because there was tuning. They could change around the cars to a certain extent. If the penalty system can't be fixed, at the very least, you should be allowed to change the suspension and transmission settings. So that way, you can tune your car to your liking, and there's less of a chance of penalties happening in the first place, because, well, people will be able to drive their cars better. Because they can set them up how they like, or use other people's settings that are just more experienced and have it set in a way that's better than the default setting. Again, there's the old adage of a lot of the times there's no one size fits all type tune. Everybody doesn't like the exact same tune, but PD's trying to implement a default one size fits all tune. Meaning, yeah, the best tuner in the world may not work for you, even though that's what the majority of people might want to use. But a tune that's exactly the same for every car that everyone in the world must use most likely will not work perfectly for you. If PD can't fix the penalty system, at this late into the game's lifespan, they could at least allow tuning. Tuning already exists to an extent in GT Sport anyway, because in lobbies, there's a section where you can turn on or off tuning. I don't know specifically if it's downright as perfect as it was in other games, because in other games, yeah, it wasn't that great. Like back in old games, there was a performance point system which wasn't the best balanced, but there was a lot more cars in GT Sport, and a lot more, or in GT6, and there was a lot more categories of cars in GT6. At least for a basic Group 4, Group 3 race, you'd think you can get tuning in a way that's fair. What's harder to get implemented? Fair tuning or fair penalty system? That, all in all, just depends on the individual person. But I think it's fair to agree at this point that the majority of people would want better in whatever way, shape, or form it is, whether it is the penalty system or it is more tuning or a combination of both. But at this point also, the majority of people probably just straight up ain't playing GT Sport anymore. No matter how you word that, the majority of people bought GT Sport in the first place, the majority of Gran Turismo fans in general, whatever it may be, at this point, close to 2 years into the game's lifespan, not as many people are showing up. I'm not necessarily saying allowing tuning would downright make the numbers spike, or fixing the penalty system would either. But I will say this, it's better to keep people invested into a game's franchise when you're going to release the next installment of the game. That's pretty obvious marketing. If you've done a bad job in the previous game, that's going to leave a bad taste in people's mouth for the next game. Granted, I did a whole video in general saying how it seems like it's been PD strategy the past few Gran Turismos to kind of just let them fizzle out and sit there so people don't have as much urge to go back to them, thus buy the new one. But that's kind of harder to do in GT Sport because it's a fully online-oriented game. You're kind of going to always have to do stuff to an extent with the game just till there ain't the game anymore, till online doesn't exist. Especially if GT7 doesn't have specific FIA races. So, there you have it, folks. Oh, the main reason I'm not doing sport mode races on my main account anymore is just because I haven't truly enjoyed more than maybe 3%, 5% at max of races I've done on my main account in sport mode in well over a year now. And in my alternate account, I can just do whatever I want in that. I can do a last the first challenge and not have to worry about consequences. I can race dirty to other drivers and not have to worry about sportsmanship rating going down. It's just the best way of doing it. I'll still be racing some that's completely on my alternate account. But I've even said that now going on a year or two. Is just how I worded it before was an official retirement of my main account, meaning I could still pull a Michael Waltrip or a Mark Martin or something and race a limited schedule. But now I'm just completely done with it. Until GT7. GT7 is looking like I'll be back. A few months ago, I was seriously, truly thinking I'm just going to get the Xbox 2 or whatever it ends up being called. Because Forza 8, whatever it's going to come out, it's looking like it would be better than GT Sport 2. But if GT7 comes out instead, that's probably going to get me to buy a PlayStation. And if it's backwards compatible, that's almost definitely going to get me a PlayStation, especially if it's involving PS321 games as well as PS4. Especially if digital games are in that as well. So yeah, GT Sport is just kind of done for me. I'll still be racing here and there. I will have more time to race over the summer, which is nice. And I probably will. I'll probably do some last first type challenges on my alternate account, like I did on the live stream. But nothing with my main account. I'll still probably run qualifying, do tutorials and all that, but the races Nah, I'm not going back to something that I've enjoyed doing quite a while for the most part. Yeah, I'll miss the individual gyms of races, but there's a lot of effort to put in to even be able to make those races gyms in the first place. Like that kart race that I did, the specialitating, like the racing with the very best kart drivers, and the one where I had the Beavis and Butthead helmet and all that. I'm not even lying, I probably did roughly 1,000 miles of practice for that race. So again, I don't mind repetition for competition, but still, if I'm doing that just to enjoy one race at a time and then not have another fun race for months on end, yeah, it's just not worth it anymore. It's sad to say, but it's obvious to say at this point. I'm just fully pulling the plug before. I've been tentative for about the last year or so on doing this, but now I'm just fully, truly, really doing it. At one point I said I quit till PD fixes stuff. At one point I said I'm retiring till PD fixes stuff. But at this point, even if PD fixes stuff, polished turd type thing. You can make GT Sport as good as they have ability to. I'm not so sure in their abilities anymore as I was a year and a half or two ago. But it still ain't GT7. Now I'm just gonna wait for GT7. GT7's looking like, very tentatively, there's almost no information about it at all, but it's looking like just it being a Gran Turismo number game in general will be worth a yeehaw. For now, I'm just kind of waiting to say yeehaw again and see what happens. So for now, just keep waiting and see what happens. But I will say this, the next video will be of the update, which will be cool. And it will still feature the new stuff and all that in there, but there's not much of the online racing. So you'll be playing GT Sport, just the online part of it, aka the main part of it's not that fun anymore. So GT7's better, folks, because that's what I'm banking on right now.